Welcome back to Design Dungeon, where we look at character designs and rate them based on how visually appealing they are and how they function as a character in their series. As the movie approaches with Sonic's redesigned CGI body running across the silver screen, I think it's high time we talked about Sonic the Hedgehog. That said, I'm only doing the games because the TV shows and the comic are beasts that need to be met on their own terms, especially the Archie run. Good lord. Yet, we need some context. Sonic was conceived in the year 1991 as a character for an in-development platformer for Sega's new 16-bit console, the Genesis. What began as some sketches on napkins became the face of Sega as we know it today. So let's break down Sonic's overall design. Despite it going through several iterations of the years, there are similarities across most of his designs, the first of which being his color. Now, saying Sonic is blue is not the most surprising observation out there. It is his primary color after all, but what's more interesting is his secondary colors, those being red, white, and yellow. These are colors commonly used in designing classic superheroes like Superman, Captain America, and many others. Little wonder why he gained such popularity in America so quickly. Yet, this is only one reason as to why he was so appealing in the States. While not the be-all and end-all of character design, the silhouette is a major factor in making a recognizable character. Sonic is an extremely good example of a very distinct silhouette. Even among his worst designs, oh yeah, I'm definitely talking about that, don't worry about that, they still manage to keep that silhouette. That said, for me, there is more to character design than just somebody's outline in shadow. There is also shapes and body language. Sonic, fortunately, has these in spades. His form is primarily composed of circles and triangles, which gives him a cutesy yet energetic look. Same with his posture. Even early on, he had a lot of spunk. While Sonic has an attitude in design, in execution his characteristic has simultaneously been stagnant and inconsistent. Let me clarify a bit. Sega has gotten an idea of how Sonic generally behaves, character traits, yet sometimes he's more arrogant than heroic, other times he's about as bland as white bread. I posit this inconsistency is from a lack of any backstory or real motivation. While this makes him a very adaptable character, you could put him in any setting and get away with it, this does hurt his integrity as a character. Combine this with Sega restricting how he can be handled by writers, this is a surefire way to kneecap a character in execution. Now we can get into the real meat and potatoes of Sonic, his many redesigns. Naturally, most of what we talked about generally applies to what's considered classic Sonic. It's generally also considered to be a younger version of him, and sometimes a parallel version. I don't know what you're doing, Sega, but it's kinda weird. So, naturally, when he got his first redesign in 1999, he looks a bit older. His torso is more like an oval, his limbs are longer, he also has spines that are more pronounced. This design seems to have stuck because it still manages to accomplish what the original does, except that he's a bit more grown up. Now there are two major variants of this design. The first is just the change in shoes for Sonic Adventure 2. A really interesting variant is his design in the Sonic Riders series, giving him more geometrical shoes like in Adventure 2, and some goggles to protect his eyes. These changes still keep in line with the color palette, and it doesn't interrupt his silhouette that much. There's also the Werehog, but the Werehog was really weird. There's not much else to say about it, it was just a weird design. I was okay with it, but the levels were a real slog, especially in the version I played, which was the PS2 version. Don't judge me, I couldn't afford a PS3 at the time, okay? Seriously, that thing was way too expensive. Alright, now we can go on to his second most controversial design, the Sonic Boom version. There is a color palette issue with that, but it's not the arms. It's the brown scarf. Why brown of all things? I know we were going for a more grounded design, but this is Sonic the Hedgehog. Give him a nice contrasting orange scarf that says,
"Look at me! Here I am! Love me!"
Otherwise, I do actually like that they decided to vary up his spine sizes. They did stretch out his legs a bit more, but he's still otherwise recognizable. It's still okay, but it did need some fine-tuning. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, the original movie design. Sure, I said that I'd be talking about the games, but how could I not? This design had the biggest backlash to a Sonic redesign of all of them. And the reasons are very apparent. The design really pulled a Lion King on us, that being a crippling obsession with realism. They gave him smaller eyes, muscular legs, and human teeth. All three of those decisions absolutely set this design up for absolute failure. The legs messed up his silhouette. The eyes actually hurt his expressions, and the mouth just struck a primal chord in my brain and I felt the urge to chuck spears at it! I'm so glad they redesigned it to be more in line with the classic and even a little bit of modern Sonic. So where does Sonic rate on my scale? He's alright. The look is iconic, but I'll be damned if he had any standout character moments in his games. Though writing quality in his games tend to be on par with Devil May Cry 1.
Alright.
Dr. Ivo Robotnik, otherwise known as Eggman, is Sonic's main antagonist. He is the first of many to have a contrasting color scheme against Sonic. He's got the classic villain colors of red and black, with some gold accents. Of course, one cliche deserves another, as Eggman is a mad scientist. Yet he actually doesn't have the traditional hallmarks of the mad scientist. Rather than being based off of a historical scientist like Tesla or Einstein, he's based off of the US President Theodore Roosevelt. This may have to do with the fact that he was designed to be the initial protagonist for their flagship game. Of course, this didn't happen. Unlike Sonic, I would say Dr. Eggman is a super consistent character. He's an egomaniacal roboticist that wants to rule the world, but he always gets foiled by that pesky hedgehog, or by whatever cosmic entity of the game he unleashed this time. Sure, Eggman is a predictable character, but he is at least entertaining. Now, he's had about 4 designs. There is the original, which was very round and most resembled Theodore Roosevelt. Then there's the modern design, which keeps his rounded shape, yet I think it's a bit more slim with his long legs. The third is his '06 design. I think it speaks for itself. Then there's the Sonic Boom redesign. It's fine, it's a bit more triangular, but it still works. I'd say it gives him more of a authoritative look, but then again, he doesn't have much authority in Sonic Boom, so it's kind of weird in that sense. Last but not least, let's talk about Jim Carrey in the film adaptation. It's kind of an odd choice. I don't know if I would have cast him for the role if I was in that kind of position, but he's certainly over the top enough for Eggman. The strange thing is, though, that he's very scrawny. Of course, this Sonic film does seem like an origin for Dr. Eggman. At least that's what I've gathered from the trailers. Unsurprisingly, Eggman is on par with Sonic.
Alright.
Tails is the young sidekick to Sonic that was introduced in the second game. He's pretty straightforward. His yellow fur denotes his youth, and his species as a fox denotes his wit. Though foxes aren't necessarily associated with mechanics. This is more so to do with him being built up as a character over time. Kind of a microcosm of the franchise, so to speak. When Tails did have something that resembled a character, He was kind of a naive whiz kid that came up with a lot of inventions that would often get used in the games. Especially in Sonic Riders, where he designs both of Sonic's hoverboards, and even develops a rivalry with Wave the Swallow. I would say he's a consistent character if Sonic Forces didn't happen. His redesigns don't really change all that much, even the Sonic Boom one just adds some gear that would actually be fitting for an engineer. Not really all that much to say about Tails, at least in the games. If this were the comics, however, I would have far more to say about him. Good lord, what did they do with him?
Brutal.
Originally conceived as Sonic's first rival, Knuckles the Echidna is designed to contrast with Sonic. While Sonic is blue, Knuckles is red. Where Sonic has spines that point outwards, Knuckles' spines drop downwards. I also think his snout's a bit longer too. Nonetheless, he's a very good rival design for the Blue Blur, at least early on. Now, his character is rather interesting. No, I am not talking about his comic. That is a story for another day. Completely different video. Not talking about that. Knuckles initially starts as a more antagonistic role in Sonic 3, being tricked by Dr. Robotnik to think that Sonic and Tails are after the Master Emerald. Once he realizes that he's been tricked, he goes after Robotnik in Sonic and Knuckles. From then on out, Knuckles slowly becomes a steadfast ally of Sonic. While he remains as the Emerald's guardian in the Adventure series, he eventually becomes a mainstay of Sonic's team by the time Heroes rolls around. He's one of the few characters in the Sonic series that actually has an arc over several games. Speaking of changes, let's look at his designs. Like Tails, he's got 3 major iterations: the classic and the modern. That's just a more refined look. Then we have the Sonic Boom design. It definitely caught some flack for how oddly proportioned he was, but I personally understand the reasoning that was behind it. Now, was it a good decision to make him look like he skipped leg day? I really don't think so.
Alright.
Amy Rose is an interesting character to say the least. Her earliest appearance dates back to Sonic CD, in which she sports her first design, which is vastly different in color and design from her more modern look in the Adventure series. While the original design will be taken into consideration, most know her by her modern appearance. Amy's palette screams, "I am girl, please pay attention to me!" It's an analogous scheme of red, pink, and white accents to yellow bracelets. This impression is further driven home by her dress and high-heel boots. Unfortunately, Amy is often regarded as a one-note character, obsessing over Sonic and the prospect of being his girlfriend, a fate that the powers that be will never allow. Though there is a bit more to her when it comes to her character. There have been a few instances where her empathetic nature has managed to win over a few anti-heroes. The first being Shadow the Hedgehog in Adventure 2, convincing him to save the world, and then there was Silver, who we'll get to later. Nowadays, the Sonic aspect to her is played down, but really that just shows how little else there was to her. Also, I haven't forgotten all the times she mistook other characters for looking like Sonic. Really, especially in Unleashed, where it actually was him that time. It was a stupid joke, and it had no business lasting beyond Adventure 2. Alright, now we can look at her other designs. The Sonic CD design really does seem more of a prototype version of her. Her palette was very garish, her spines looked too much like Sonic, at least the modern version looks like she could have an identity beyond Girl Hedgehog. Before we move on to the Sonic Boom one, I'd like to add that her Rider's outfit looks far better than the normal one, but then again, that's kind of Rider's designs in general. As for the Boom design, it's probably the best one of them, despite the Japanese accents don't really make such sense in the setting, but then again, does anything make sense in that train wreck of a game?
Alright.
Blaze is a relatively new addition, probably the second newest that we're going to cover in full. Right off the bat, we can tell she's royalty, what with her primarily purple and white color palette. along with her fur-lined boots and gloves. Even her flame powers are hinted at by her tail and hair. It's also unsurprising that she was designed as being something of a parallel to Sonic. I think she does have some similar shape language to him. There is a lot of triangles in her design. If anything, she's a bit sharper than him. From a character perspective, she is actually quite the Ice Queen, very emotionally distant from others, which is always a nice change from the stereotypical hot-blooded pyrokinesis person. Not too familiar with her role in the Sonic Rush series, but I am familiar with the Sonic 06 one, and she is probably one of the few rays of light in the shadowy room of bugs and needlessly convoluted plot lines. Overall, she's a well-made character that could easily have her own spin-off series.
Almighty!
Since we're still somewhat on the subject of Sonic 06, let's talk about Silver. Strangely has a very interesting color palette, mainly due to his boots and gloves, adding some glowing blue and gold to an otherwise monochromatic color scheme. I also like that Sega actually decided to make a unique looking hedgehog that wasn't just Sonic with reversed quills. Speaking of quills, I like that he has the front set stand up when he's using psychokinesis. Very nice touch. That said, his character is 7 flavors of stupid, and his boss battle was just horrible. So consider me disappointed.
Just alright.
Oh boy, Shadow the Hedgehog, the red and black Sonic clone. The origin of all crappy Sonic OCs. At least the ones that are Sonic Shoe. There, I brought it up, okay? We done here? Okay, good. Alright, back to Shadow. His design screams, this is Sonic, but evil. In truth, he's actually a very interesting anti-hero that has a solid character arc over the course of several games. Unfortunately, his arc concludes in one of the strangest titles of the Sonic series, Shadow the Hedgehog, which held such wondrous character moments.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
Just the best moments in Sonic history. So aside from that, there was that one time he showed up in Sonic Boom for like one scene. It was an okay design. Thankfully, Show makes use of him a lot more.
Awesome!
To those who are familiar with the Sonic franchise, you probably know just how big a cast the series has managed to amass over the years. So, I shall be covering the ones that I find notable, or at least wish to cover for this video. Vector,
The crocodile! Jazz hands.
Blast!
Espio. Haven't you heard? Real ninjas wear blue.
Also blast!
Ray. Who actually remembered Ray before Sonic Mania? I sure didn't, and he showed up in the comics.
Crazy!
Mighty. He's got a good design. I talk about his character, but this isn't the comic version.
Blast!
Charmy. He's not the most annoying character out there, but he's still very grating.
Bravo!
Metal Sonic. He's a classic enemy. Probably won't ever get tired of seeing him.
Almighty!
Rouge the Bat. Probably has the most varied outfits of the cast.
Awesome!
Okay, I'm going to do the Babylon Rogues in one fell swoop. Jet? Oh boy, another rival character. At least he looks good. Wave, not gonna lie, probably the best looking Babylon Rogue out of the trio. Storm. Seriously? Another dumb muscle? Can we get some friggin' characterization in here?
Bruto!
Honey the Cat. She only appears in Sonic Fighters, but wow, that was a good design.
Blast!
Cream. She was OP in Sonic Riders?
Bravo!
Cheese and, by extension, Other Chow. Look, I only played my friend's copy of Adventure and Adventure 2, so I don't really have that much connection to the Chow.
Bravo!
Alright, here's another 2-for-1. Gamma, the saddest adventure story. Omega, because we couldn't just reconstruct Gamma.
Both are brutal.
Chip, all the reason to have Sonic Unleashed's voices on Japanese.
Alright.
Shade the Echidna. Panders! Why?
Awesome.
Chaos. Pretty much set the standard for all Sonic final bosses from here on out.
Alright.
Black Doom. Wake me up inside, can't wake up inside, save me.
Bravo.
Mephiles the Dark. Interesting villain, poor initial design, even worse game.
Blast.
Big the Cat.
Delete this.
Infinite. Wasted potential. The character.
Bravo.
So that will do it for this episode of Design Dungeon. Please like and subscribe if you want more content. Also leave a comment if you want to recommend a series or work for me to look at. I'll be seeing you all next time on Design Dungeon.